Good morning and welcome to Introductory Logic Lesson 13. Today we are officially getting into the square of opposition. I've been bringing it up in previous lessons, but today we're going to actually talk about what it is and get some more information up here on it. So first of all, if you recall in lesson 9, we talked about relationships between statements. And the statements we were talking about in that one had to do with different statements that had maybe different subjects and predicates, but they had relationship with one another still. If you recall, there was consistency, and this is where both statements can be true at the same time. And there was implication. This one was one statement implied the truth of another statement. It only went one way though. The second statement could not imply the first, but the first could imply the truth of the second one. The third relationship between statements we discussed was logical equivalence. And this one, they imply the truth value of each other. So one statement necessarily shows the truth value of the other statement, and then that statement necessarily implies the truth of the other one. So those imply one another. And the fourth relationship was independence. And this one is where they have nothing to do with each other. One doesn't affect the truth of the other one at all. So that's what we looked at in lesson 9. And if you need to go back to look at that one, it's lesson 9. But today, and when we use the square of opposition, we're actually looking at a statement that has the exact same subject and the exact same predicate. Now, I have this sentence up here. This, just to show, policemen eat donuts. Okay, this is what we're going to be using. And if you notice, we have the subject and donuts. So this will remain the same throughout each of our statements. And the reason why we do it this way, because remember, in the last lesson we discussed how it's set up this way because there's a subject class and a predicate class. There's a clear distinction of what we're talking about in the subject and the predicate. So we can compare and determine whether or not everything is lining up and it's valid and it makes sense, and how the conclusion can either be valid or invalid, and then if the statements are true, that the conclusion could be true. That's kind of jumping ahead, but that is the reason why we are going to look at each of these statements using the same subject and the same predicate. And also, I wanted to say too, so the last lesson and these lessons are going to start getting harder. And I said in the last video that the homework is a huge jump in difficulty level. So if there's something that's still not making sense, or if it is helping, let me know. And if there's something that's still not making sense, let me know that too. Because when I first started doing this, when I was in Challenge B 3 years ago, a lot of the kids in my class were very confused when they got home and were doing the homework. So I actually started doing videos just on the homework to send to them because it was just easier that way. But I shared it with the directors too, and it had helped them too. So I can help with the homework too if there's some things getting very complicated. So just let me know one way or the other. All right, back to this. So first things first, we have a common conversation style statement that we have to translate into our standard categorical statement. Standard categorical statement, to recap, has to have a to be verb. It has to have a word that denies or affirms. So it's going to have all, no, or some. And there has to be a noun in the subject and the predicate. So that's what we have to do first. So first things first, policeman. That is going to, I'm going to translate down here. Policeman. And I need a to be verb, and it has to match the number of the subject and the tense of the verb. So it is eat. So I'm going to do policemen, and it's plural, are, and I'm going to take my verb. Now this one, the subject is doing the verb, so I can add an ER to this one and it makes sense. So I'm going to do eater, and I'm going to leave space over here. What kind of eater? A donut eater. Now, my first one, I'm going to make affirmative, and I'm going to say all. All policemen are donut eaters. Now, this is known as the A statement. The A statement. It goes in this corner up here. So I'm going to go ahead and write, let me get a different color. I'm going to go ahead and write this statement up here to keep it straight. All policemen are donut eaters. For space sake, I moved it down here. I don't technically like to do that, but I'm kind of like, I'm weird about visuals. But I'm going to do that, bring it down here for space. All right, now we've got to get this statement over here. Now this one is going to be the negative. So instead of all, it's going to be no. So this one is actually the E statement. It's actually A, E, I, O. The easiest way to remember that is it's the vowels and they go in order, and it's the order in which you read, left to right, top to bottom. A, E, I, O. So when I have the kids do a square of opposition, I think it's the easiest thing, just go ahead and get those up first. A, E, I, O. All right, so this one, I'm keeping my subject the same. To be verb. And the predicate is the same. Now this time it's got to be negative. And it's still universal. It's still talking about the whole group of policemen, so I'm going to use the word no. No policemen are donut eaters. No policemen are, for time's sake, I'm going to abbreviate donut eaters to DE. All right, so now let's look at our I. Now, our I statement is some are. And I had this up on the last video. So the one down here is some are. So I'm going to replace my first word with some. I'm going to bring down the same subject. Subject never changes. Some policemen are donut eaters. Are donut eaters. All right, now this one is the negative side of we're talking about part of the group. Up here, we're talking about the whole group. Down here, we're talking about part. That's why we use the word some. So both statements on the bottom are going to start with some. This side is positive, though, so it says some are. This side is negative, so it's going to say some are not. So, again, I'm going to start with the word some. And I'm going to say are not. For time's sake, I'm actually going to start abbreviating policeman with P. And I'll drop it down to D for donut eaters. All right, so some P are not D. Some P are not D. So I have just taken my original sentence here, identified the subject and the predicate, and turned the verb into a noun. I needed a noun on the predicate side. I already had one on the subject side. And added to be verbs. And what you see, what we have up here, are sentences that are talking about the exact same thing and affirming or denying the exact same thing about the subject. So, if you notice, I actually circle this in. Policeman is our subject class. Donuts are our predicate class. So we clearly are talking about policemen and donut eaters. Policemen and donut eaters. Policemen, donut eaters. P, D. All right, so we have set it up in this square of opposition. We will, at later videos, start talking about the relationships that each of these statements have with one another. Because unlike the original relationships we discussed, where there's different statements that may or may not affect one another and be independent, these are not independent. So they do affect one another, whether a statement is true or false, based on the falsity or truth value of the other. That's jumping ahead. So looking at this, we have the A, E, I, O. We have all are, no are, some are not. Now, I can actually erase the actual word and label it the same way I did down there. Let me just erase all of it. So what you start doing is you can, I clearly cannot erase and talk at the same time today. You can, so for example, I did policeman with a P and then donut eater with a D. When you start getting into using multiple different statements, that will be how you identify what subject you're talking about. You will use different letters because there's so many statements. For the time being, when you're just dealing with what we're doing now, we can do all S, RP, no S, RP, some S, RP, some S, are not P. I will go ahead and add the P and the D in these just to show you. So the S would become a P with our policeman statement, and the P would be a D with our donut part. So as you can see, it's still the same. It's still the same. It's just using a different letter. And as long as you know and understand that the first, this S starts is the subject and the P is the predicate. So that remains the same. It's just what words are you using there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and actually add what we discussed yesterday or in the previous lesson. And we're going to talk about the universals, in particular, the quality and the quantity. So up here, we're first going to talk about the quantity. How much of the subject are we actually talking about? Are we talking about the entire extension of the subject or only part of the extension? So all and no is talking about the entire extension of whatever the subject is. And in this case, it was policemen. We're talking about all policemen. We're either saying all of them are or none of them are. So this top is the universal. It is discussing the entire extension of the subject. Now, down here, I'm going to just erase this part. Down here, we have some and some are not. So we are not talking about the entire extension of policemen. We're only talking about a part of it. So the bottom is particular. And again, this is discussing quantity. And this one is quantity. How much of the subject? Now, we also have to add quality. What is being said about the subject? Is something being affirmed about the subject, or is something being denied about the subject? Over here, we're saying are. All are, some are. So this is the positive side. So on this side, we are affirming. So I'm going to write affirm. On this side, we're affirming something about the subject. Now over here, we're saying none or no. No of the subject are something, and some of the subject are not. This is the negative side. So on this side, we are denying. This is the denying side. denying something about the subject. So this is it for today's lesson. We have, just to recap, we have the 4 statements, A, E, I, O, all SRP, no SRP, some SRP, some S are not P. The subject and the predicate has to be the same in every single one of these sentences, because what we're doing here is looking at the relationship between these statements and these particular classes, and they're not going to change. We have up here at the top the universal, where we're talking about the entire extension of the subject. Down here's the particular, where we're talking about part of the extension of the subject. On the left side, it is affirming something about the subject, so it's positive. And on this side, the right, did I say this is the left side, this is the right? I don't know what I just said. The right side is denying something about the subject, so it is negative. That's it for today. Again, let me know if this is helping or if something's still unclear, and see you for the next, where we're going to actually start looking at the different relationships between all these statements. Y'all have a good day, and I'll see you later.